Tyler West disappeared after picking up a fare on October 15, 1998. 15 years later, when the taxi company's headquarters was sold, new owners found a sealed envelope in the office safe. Inside was Tyler's final shift report and a passenger receipt for a ride that officially never happened. But what investigators discovered in that envelope would expose a conspiracy so vast it reached into the highest levels of city government. And Tyler West's disappearance was just the beginning of a cover-up that had been claiming lives for years. October 15, 1998 was supposed to be just another ordinary Thursday night for Tyler West. At 52 years old, he had been driving nights for Metro City Cab Company for 18 years, long enough to know every shortcut, every late-night diner, and every corner where trouble might be waiting. His wife, Victoria Hayes, had been begging him to consider day shifts, especially after their daughter Mackenzie moved away for college. The night routes were getting rougher, she said, and Tyler wasn't getting any younger. But Tyler loved the quiet rhythms of the night city, the conversations with insomniacs and shift workers, the way the streetlights carved golden paths through the darkness. Tyler had always prided himself on being observant, on noticing details that others missed. It was a skill that made him an excellent taxi driver, able to anticipate traffic patterns and read the moods of his passengers. But that same attention to detail would soon make him a target for forces far more dangerous than he could have imagined. That Thursday started like any other. Tyler kissed Victoria goodbye at 9:47 p.m., grabbed his thermos of coffee, and drove his personal car to the Metro City Cab garage on Industrial Boulevard. The garage was a converted auto repair shop that smelled permanently of motor oil and cigarettes, where a dozen yellow Crown Victoria sedans sat in neat rows like sleeping giants. Tyler picked up cab number 47, the same vehicle he'd driven for the past 3 years. He performed his routine inspection, checking the tires, lights, and meter, before radioing dispatcher Allison Blake that he was ready for his first fare. But Tyler had no idea that tonight would mark the beginning of the end. Someone had already been watching him for weeks, documenting his every move, waiting for the perfect opportunity to silence him forever. The night proceeded normally at first. Tyler picked up a nurse finishing her shift at St. Catherine's Hospital, drove a college student home from a late study session, and transported an elderly man from a poker game that had run past midnight. Each fare was logged meticulously in his personal notebook, a habit Tyler had maintained since his first week on the job. Passenger names, pickup times, destinations, fare amounts. Tyler documented everything with the precision of an accountant. It was during his third fare of the evening that Tyler first noticed something unusual. As he dropped off the elderly poker player at his apartment complex, Tyler spotted a dark sedan parked across the street with its engine running. The same car had been behind him when he picked up the college student 20 minutes earlier. Tyler made a mental note but didn't think too much about it. Coincidences happened all the time in a city this size. But when Tyler saw the same sedan again during his next pickup, his driver's instincts kicked in. Someone was following him, and they weren't being particularly subtle about it. Tyler considered calling the police, but what would he tell them? That he thought a car might be following his taxi? Without proof of criminal intent, the police would likely dismiss his concerns as paranoia. At 11:43 p.m., dispatcher Allison Blake's voice crackled through the radio. "Tyler, you've got a pickup at the Riverside Motel, room 12. Passenger name is Daniel Brooks, requesting transport to the train station." Tyler acknowledged the call and drove the familiar route to the motel, a 2-story budget establishment that catered to traveling salesmen and people down on their luck. The Riverside had seen better days, its neon sign flickering intermittently, and its parking lot cracked with weeds growing through the asphalt. As Tyler approached the motel, he noticed that the dark sedan was no longer behind him. For a moment he felt relieved, thinking perhaps he had been imagining the surveillance. But as he pulled into the motel parking lot, he saw the sedan parked in the shadows at the far end of the lot, positioned where the occupants could observe the entire area without being easily seen. Tyler's unease deepened. This wasn't a coincidence. Someone was definitely watching him, and they had apparently known about his pickup at the Riverside Motel before he did. That suggested either inside knowledge of the taxi company's dispatch system or sophisticated surveillance capabilities. Tyler pulled into the motel parking lot at 11:51 p.m. Room 12 was on the ground floor, and he could see light seeping around the edges of the curtains. He honked twice, the standard signal to let passengers know their ride had arrived. Within moments, a man emerged from the room and walked quickly toward the cab. Tyler's first impression was that the passenger seemed nervous, constantly glancing over his shoulder as he approached the vehicle. But Tyler also noticed something else that made his blood run cold. As the passenger approached his cab, Tyler saw two men get out of the dark sedan and begin walking in his direction. They weren't rushing, but they were moving with purpose, and their body language suggested they weren't tourists looking for directions. The man who slid into the back seat appeared to be in his mid-30s, wearing a dark jacket and baseball cap pulled low over his face. "Train station," he said quietly, his voice muffled. Tyler noted that the passenger kept his head down, avoiding eye contact in the rearview mirror. In 18 years of driving, Tyler had learned to read people quickly. This passenger was running from something or someone. As Tyler put the cab in gear, he noticed in his side mirror that the two men from the sedan had stopped walking and were now standing beside a lamppost, apparently having a casual conversation. But Tyler could see they were watching his cab intently, and one of them appeared to be speaking into a handheld radio. The drive to the train station should have taken 12 minutes. Tyler had made the route hundreds of times. But as they left the motel parking lot, the passenger suddenly spoke up. "Actually, change of plans. Take me to the warehouse district instead. Corner of 5th and Industrial." Tyler glanced in the rearview mirror, trying to get a better look at the man's face, but the passenger had slouched down in the seat, his cap casting deep shadows. What Tyler didn't know was that this destination change wasn't spontaneous. It was carefully planned, designed to take him to a location where no one would witness what was about to happen. The warehouse district was a collection of abandoned and semi-abandoned buildings on the outskirts of the city, a place where legitimate business rarely ventured after dark. Tyler felt a prickle of unease. "That's going to be quite a bit more expensive," he said, hoping to gauge the passenger's reaction. "Not a problem," came the reply. The man reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick roll of cash, far more money than anyone should be carrying for a simple cab ride. As they drove through increasingly desolate streets, Tyler tried to make conversation, another habit that had served him well over the years. "Working late tonight?" he asked. The passenger didn't respond. "Visiting family?" Still nothing. The silence in the cab became oppressive, broken only by the steady hum of the engine and the occasional static burst from the radio. Tyler noticed that they were being followed again. The dark sedan had reappeared in his rearview mirror, maintaining a careful distance but staying close enough to keep the cab in sight. Whatever was happening, it was clearly coordinated, involving multiple people and careful planning. When they reached the intersection of 5th and Industrial, the passenger directed Tyler to pull over beside a chain-link fence surrounding what appeared to be an abandoned auto parts warehouse. The building was dark, its windows boarded up, and there were no other cars or people visible anywhere in the vicinity. Tyler's instincts screamed that something was wrong. This wasn't a normal drop-off location. No buses ran through this area, no other businesses were open, and it would be nearly impossible to get another ride from here. "This is fine," the passenger said, handing Tyler a $50 bill for what should have been a $15 fare. "Keep the change." But instead of getting out of the cab immediately, the man paused. "Tyler West," he said quietly, and Tyler's blood turned cold. The passenger knew his name, but Tyler was certain he'd never seen this man before in his life. "Do I know you?" Tyler asked, his hand instinctively moving toward the radio to call for help. But the passenger was already moving. In one swift motion, he reached forward and yanked the radio cord from its connection, disabling Tyler's link to the dispatcher. "We need to talk," the man said, his voice now carrying an unmistakable note of menace. Tyler's mind raced through his options. He could try to drive away, but the passenger was sitting directly behind him and could easily reach forward to grab the steering wheel or attack him. He could get out and run, but he was 52 years old and not in the best physical condition. His best chance was to keep the man talking and hope for an opportunity to escape. But escape was already impossible. As Tyler glanced in his mirrors, he saw that the dark sedan had pulled up behind his cab, blocking any retreat. Two more cars had appeared from side streets, forming a loose perimeter around the area. Tyler was trapped, surrounded by what appeared to be a coordinated team of professionals. "What do you want?" Tyler asked, trying to keep his voice steady. The passenger reached into his jacket again, and Tyler tensed, expecting to see a weapon. Instead, the man pulled out a manila envelope, thick with papers. "You've been asking questions," the passenger said. "Questions about things that don't concern you?" But Tyler wasn't the first taxi driver to receive this visit, and he wouldn't be the last person to discover just how far these people would go to protect their secrets. Tyler was genuinely confused. He had no idea what the man was talking about. "I think you've got the wrong person," he said. "I'm just a cab driver. I don't ask questions about anything except where people want to go." The passenger opened the envelope and pulled out a series of photographs. Even in the dim light from the street lamp, Tyler could see they were surveillance photos of himself. Getting into his cab, talking to other drivers, having coffee at his usual diner. Someone had been watching him for days, maybe weeks. "3 weeks ago, you picked up a passenger from the Federal Building downtown," the man continued. "A woman named Rebecca Hughes. You drove her to a hotel on the east side. During that ride, she told you things. Important things. Things that could hurt certain people if they became public knowledge." Tyler remembered the fare. Rebecca Hughes had been a nervous, middle-aged woman who had indeed seemed upset about something. She had made several phone calls during the ride, speaking in hushed tones about financial irregularities and missing funds. Tyler had assumed she was dealing with some kind of office politics or accounting dispute. He certainly hadn't thought it was anything worth remembering in detail. "Lady was upset about something at work," Tyler said carefully. "I don't make it my business to listen to passengers' conversations." But even as he said it, Tyler realized he was lying. He did listen, and he did remember. It was part of what made him good at his job. People trusted him with their stories, their problems, their secrets. And Rebecca Hughes had definitely been scared of someone. The passenger studied Tyler's face in the rearview mirror. Rebecca Hughes was an accountant for Consolidated Municipal Services. She discovered that someone has been embezzling money from city construction contracts, millions of dollars over several years. Money that was supposed to go toward improving roads, building schools, maintaining public safety equipment. Tyler's stomach dropped. Rebecca Hughes hadn't just been upset about office politics. She had stumbled onto a major corruption scandal, something that would destroy careers and possibly send people to prison. And somehow Tyler's name had gotten connected to her investigation. What Tyler couldn't have known was that Rebecca Hughes was just one of several whistleblowers who had tried to expose this conspiracy. The others had met similar fates, their deaths carefully arranged to look like accidents or suicides. "She was going to meet with federal investigators the next morning," the passenger continued, "but she never made it to that meeting. Her car was found 3 days later at the bottom of Miller's Quarry with Rebecca Hughes inside. The official cause of death was determined to be suicide, depression related to work stress. But Tyler remembered how Rebecca Hughes had sounded during their cab ride. She hadn't been depressed. She had been angry, determined, almost excited about exposing whatever wrongdoing she had discovered. People planning suicide don't usually sound like they're about to solve the crime of the century. "What does any of this have to do with me?" Tyler asked, though he was beginning to understand exactly what it had to do with him. He was the last person to see Rebecca Hughes alive, the only witness to her emotional state before her death. If anyone ever decided to question the official suicide ruling, Tyler would be a key witness. The passenger leaned forward, his face finally visible in the streetlight. Tyler still didn't recognize him, but he could see the man was older than he had initially appeared, probably in his 40s, with graying hair and the kind of expensive dental work that suggested money and status. This wasn't some street criminal or desperate addict. This was someone with resources, someone with connections, someone who could make problems disappear. And as Tyler would soon learn, this man had been making problems disappear for the corruption ring for over a decade. "You're going to forget about Rebecca Hughes," the man said quietly. "You're going to forget about anything she might have said during your ride. You're going to forget that you ever picked her up at all. Your logbook is going to show that you had no fares from the Federal Building that day." Tyler realized this wasn't a request. It was a threat, and the implication was clear. If Tyler didn't cooperate, he might end up like Rebecca Hughes at the bottom of a quarry with a convenient suicide note. And if I refuse, Tyler asked, though he already knew the answer. The passenger smiled, but there was no warmth in it. You have a wife, Victoria, a daughter, Mackenzie, who's a sophomore at State University. Your wife works part-time at the public library. Your daughter is studying education, plans to be a teacher. Nice family. It would be terrible if something happened to them. The threat was explicit now. Tyler's hands were shaking as he gripped the steering wheel. This wasn't just about his own safety anymore. These people, whoever they were, had done their research. They knew about his family, his life, his routines. They could hurt the people he loved most. What do you want me to do? Tyler asked, his voice barely above a whisper. The passenger reached into the envelope again and pulled out a pre-written report sheet, identical to the forms Tyler used to log his daily fares. You're going to replace the original report for October 3rd with this one, the man said. The new version will show that you never picked up anyone from the federal building. You'll file it with your dispatcher tomorrow morning. Tyler looked at the forged report. It was expertly done, matching his handwriting style and including correct fare amounts for his other rides that day. Someone had put considerable effort into creating this false record. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment cover-up. This was a carefully planned operation to eliminate any evidence connecting Rebecca Hughes to potential witnesses. How do I know you won't hurt my family anyway? Tyler asked. Because we're not monsters, the passenger replied. We're businessmen. As long as you keep your mouth shut and don't cause any problems, your family will be perfectly safe. But if you ever decide to play hero, if you ever contact the police or the FBI or any investigators, we'll know about it, and then we'll have to take more permanent measures. Tyler understood. He was being recruited as an unwilling accomplice in a cover-up. His silence was being purchased with threats against his family, and his cooperation was being ensured through fear. It was a system that probably worked very effectively, Tyler realized. How many other people had been approached like this? How many other witnesses had been neutralized through intimidation? But Tyler didn't yet understand the full scope of what he was up against. This wasn't just about one corrupt contract or one dead accountant. This was about a criminal organization that had infiltrated every level of city government. There's one more thing, the passenger said, pulling out a business card and placing it on the seat beside Tyler. If anyone ever asks you about Rebecca Hughes, if any investigators ever contact you, you're going to call that number immediately. Don't talk to anyone else first. Don't consult with your wife or a lawyer. You call that number and someone will tell you exactly what to say. Tyler picked up the card. It was plain white with only a phone number printed in black ink, no name or business identification. He memorized the number and slipped the card into his wallet. We understand each other? The passenger asked. Tyler nodded. What choice did he have? These people had already killed Rebecca Hughes and made it look like suicide. They had demonstrated they could reach his family anytime they wanted. Fighting back would only get people hurt, and Tyler wasn't willing to risk Victoria and Mackenzie's lives over something he couldn't control anyway. The passenger opened the cab door. Remember, Tyler? Some secrets are worth keeping, for everyone's sake. He stepped out of the cab and walked quickly toward the shadows beside the warehouse building. Within moments, he had disappeared completely, as if he had never been there at all. Tyler sat alone in his cab for several minutes, his hands still shaking, trying to process what had just happened. His entire life had just been turned upside down. He was now part of a conspiracy he didn't understand, protecting people who had committed murder, living under a threat that could materialize at any moment. He looked at the forged report sheet on the passenger seat. The handwriting was remarkably accurate, but Tyler could see subtle differences if he looked carefully. Whoever had created this forgery was skilled, but not perfect. The question was whether anyone else would ever notice the differences. The most chilling realization was yet to come. As Tyler started his engine, he noticed something that made his blood run cold. The mysterious passenger had left behind more than just threats and forged documents. Tyler started the engine and began driving back toward the city center. He needed to think, to figure out how to handle this impossible situation. But as he drove, He realized something that chilled him even more than the threats against his family. The passenger had never paid for the ride. The $50 bill he had handed Tyler was for the original fare to the train station, not for the extended trip to the warehouse district. More importantly, Tyler had never written a passenger receipt for this ride. According to his official records, his last fare of the night had been the college student he dropped off at 10:30 p.m. The ride with Daniel Brooks, the trip to the warehouse district, the threats and the conspiracy, none of it had been documented anywhere. It was as if the entire encounter had never officially happened. But Tyler had noticed something else during his encounter with the mysterious passenger. Something that would prove crucial 15 years later when investigators finally uncovered the truth. Tyler drove home in a daze, his mind spinning with implications and possibilities. By the time he pulled into his driveway at 1:17 a.m., he had made a decision. He couldn't fight these people directly, but he could create a record of what had happened, something that might someday serve as evidence if the truth ever came to light. Inside his house, while Victoria slept peacefully upstairs, Tyler sat at his kitchen table and wrote out a detailed report of the evening's events. He described the passenger, the threats, the forged documents, and the conspiracy surrounding Rebecca Hughes's death. He included every detail he could remember, down to the license plate number of a car he had seen parked near the warehouse. What Tyler didn't realize was that by writing this report, he was signing his own death warrant. The people he was up against had resources and connections that reached far beyond what a simple taxi driver could imagine. When he finished writing, Tyler placed the report in a sealed envelope, along with the original October 3rd fare sheet that he was supposed to replace with the forgery. He addressed the envelope to himself and hid it in his home safe, behind his insurance papers and birth certificates. The next morning, Tyler reported to work as usual and filed the forged report with dispatcher Allison Blake. She glanced at it briefly and filed it with the other daily paperwork, never noticing that Tyler's handwriting was slightly different than usual. For the next 3 weeks, Tyler continued his normal routine, driving his night shifts and trying to act as if nothing had changed. But he was constantly looking over his shoulder, watching for signs that he was being followed or monitored. Every unfamiliar car parked on his street, every wrong number phone call, every unexpected knock at the door sent his anxiety spiking. Victoria noticed his nervousness and asked several times if something was wrong, but Tyler couldn't bring himself to tell her the truth. How could he explain that their lives were in danger because of something he had witnessed in his cab? How could he admit that he was now part of a cover-up involving municipal corruption and murder? What Tyler didn't know was that his suspicions about being watched were absolutely correct. The conspiracy had people monitoring him constantly, waiting to see if he would keep his promise to stay silent. During those 3 weeks, Tyler noticed several disturbing patterns. The same cars appeared repeatedly in his neighborhood. Phone calls came at odd hours with no one on the line. His taxi was searched twice during routine vehicle inspections, far more frequently than normal. On November 8, 1998, exactly 3 weeks after his encounter with the mysterious passenger, Tyler made a decision that would change everything. Instead of going home after his shift, he drove to the Metro City cab garage and let himself into the office using his supervisor's key, which he had borrowed months earlier and never returned. Tyler opened the company safe, where daily reports and cash receipts were stored before being transferred to the bank. He placed a sealed envelope inside, hidden behind a stack of insurance documents, where it was unlikely to be discovered accidentally. On the envelope, Tyler wrote a brief note: "To be opened only in the event of my death or disappearance." Contains information vital to an ongoing criminal investigation. Tyler hoped he would someday be able to retrieve the envelope safely after the danger had passed and the conspiracy had been exposed through other means. But if something happened to him, if these people decided he was too much of a liability, at least there would be a record of the truth. But Tyler's enemies were already one step ahead of him. They had been monitoring his movements, and they knew he had been to the company office that night. Tyler never got the chance to retrieve his envelope. On November 12, 1998, 4 days after hiding his report in the company safe, Tyler West failed to return home from his night shift. His cab was found abandoned at 3:47 a.m. in the parking lot of a 24-hour diner, the engine still running and the driver's door wide open. Tyler's thermos of coffee was still warm, and his personal logbook was open to that night's entries, but Tyler himself was nowhere to be found. The investigation into Tyler's disappearance was brief and largely ineffective. Police found no signs of struggle, no evidence of foul play, and no obvious motive for Tyler to simply walk away from his life. His bank accounts were untouched, his personal belongings remained in the cab, and he had given no indication to family or friends that he was planning to leave. But what investigators didn't know was that Tyler's disappearance had been carefully orchestrated by professionals who specialized in making people vanish without a trace. Victoria Hayes was devastated by her husband's disappearance. She contacted police daily for updates, organized search parties, and hired a private investigator with money the family couldn't afford to spend. But weeks turned into months, and months turned into years, with no trace of Tyler West. The Metro City Cab Company continued operating for 2 more years after Tyler's disappearance, but declining revenues and increased competition from newer transportation services eventually forced the business to close in 2001. The garage was sold to a scrap metal dealer, and the company's records were transferred to a storage facility pending final disposition. For 12 years, the storage unit containing Metro City Cab's files sat untouched. The monthly rent was paid automatically from an escrow account established during the company's bankruptcy proceedings, but no one actively managed the stored materials. The boxes of receipts, logbooks, and administrative records gathered dust in a windowless concrete building on the edge of the city. During those 12 years, the corruption conspiracy that had killed Tyler West and Rebecca Hughes continued to operate with impunity. Millions more dollars were stolen from public works projects, and several other potential whistleblowers met suspicious deaths that were ruled accidents or suicides. The conspiracy might have continued indefinitely if not for a bureaucratic quirk that would finally expose the truth. In 2013, the escrow account was finally exhausted, and the storage facility prepared to auction off the abandoned unit's contents. As required by law, facility managers conducted an inventory of the materials to identify any items of potential value before the auction. Among the dozens of boxes, facility manager Colin Spencer discovered the company's safe, still locked and apparently forgotten, during the hasty transfer of materials 12 years earlier. The safe was heavy and appeared to be in good condition, suggesting it might have value to potential bidders. Spencer contacted a locksmith to open the safe, expecting to find routine business documents or perhaps a small amount of cash. Instead, he found something that would restart one of the city's most puzzling missing persons cases. Inside the safe, hidden behind stacks of yellowed insurance papers and faded receipt books, Spencer found Tyler West's sealed envelope. The note on the outside, written in Tyler's careful handwriting, was clear and urgent. To be opened only in the event of my death or disappearance. Contains information vital to an ongoing criminal investigation. Spencer immediately contacted the police. Detective Nathan Reed, who had recently been assigned to the cold case unit, arrived at the storage facility within an hour. Reed carefully photographed the envelope and its contents before opening it, preserving the chain of evidence in case the materials proved to be relevant to an active investigation. What Detective Reed found inside the envelope changed everything. Tyler's detailed report of his encounter with the mysterious passenger, the threats against his family, the conspiracy surrounding Rebecca Hughes's death, and the forged documents that had been used to cover up Tyler's connection to the case. Reed immediately pulled the original Rebecca Hughes case file from the archives. Hughes's death had indeed been ruled a suicide, and the investigation had been closed within 2 weeks. But Tyler's report raised serious questions about that conclusion. More importantly, Tyler's envelope contained the original October 3rd fare sheet, proving that he had indeed picked up Rebecca Hughes from the federal building on the day she died. The forged replacement sheet was still in the company's files, but now investigators had evidence that the records had been deliberately falsified. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Tyler's envelope also contained something that would blow the case wide open, a detailed description of the mysterious passenger, including a partial license plate number Tyler had memorized. Detective Reed launched a comprehensive reinvestigation of both Tyler West's disappearance and Rebecca Hughes's death. The corruption scandal that Rebecca had uncovered was more extensive than anyone had imagined, involving multiple city officials and millions of dollars in stolen funds. Within 6 months, federal investigators had arrested 14 people on charges ranging from embezzlement to conspiracy to commit murder. The mysterious passenger who had threatened Tyler was identified as Mitchell Carter, a private security consultant who specialized in corporate problem solving. Carter had been hired by the corrupt officials to silence Rebecca Hughes and eliminate any witnesses to her discoveries. As the investigation deepened, authorities uncovered a criminal network that had been operating for over 15 years. The corruption went far beyond simple embezzlement. Public safety equipment had been deliberately purchased from substandard suppliers, putting citizens' lives at risk. School construction had been compromised with inferior materials. Road maintenance contracts had been awarded to companies that existed only on paper. Carter was eventually convicted of first-degree murder in Rebecca Hughes's death and conspiracy charges related to Tyler West's disappearance. Under pressure from federal prosecutors, Carter revealed the location where Tyler's body had been buried, in a remote section of state forests 30 miles outside the city. Tyler West was finally laid to rest beside his parents in Greenwood Cemetery on a gray October morning, exactly 15 years after he had vanished. Victoria Hayes, now remarried but still carrying Tyler's name, spoke at the service about her husband's courage in documenting the truth even when he knew it might cost him his life. The sealed envelope Tyler had hidden in the company safe had accomplished exactly what he had hoped. It had exposed the conspiracy that killed him, brought justice for Rebecca Hughes, and provided his family with the closure they had sought for 15 years. Tyler West's final fare had indeed been his last ride, but his story had finally reached its destination. The trial proceedings revealed even more shocking details. Mitchell Carter's testimony exposed a network of corruption that extended to the state level, involving over 30 officials and contractors. The total amount of stolen funds exceeded $40 million, making it one of the largest municipal corruption cases in the state's history. But perhaps most importantly, Tyler's courage in documenting the truth had prevented countless future crimes and potentially saved lives by exposing the compromised public safety equipment. In the end, Tyler's commitment to documenting the truth, even in the face of mortal danger, had served as his own form of justice. The corruption scandal that began with Rebecca Hughes's discovery eventually led to the conviction of 17 people and the recovery of over $12 million in stolen public funds. The money was used to improve the city's public safety infrastructure, funding new equipment for police and fire departments, exactly as it had been originally intended. Rebecca Hughes's work had finally been completed, 15 years after her death. Tyler West's taxi medallion, number 47, was retired permanently and now hangs in the lobby of the Metro City Police Department, alongside a plaque commemorating his sacrifice in the service of truth and justice. Sometimes the most important journeys are the ones that bring us home to the truth. Tyler West's story reminds us that ordinary people can become extraordinary heroes simply by choosing to do what's right, even when it costs them everything. His courage to document the truth in the face of mortal danger not only brought justice for himself and Rebecca Hughes, but saved countless future lives by exposing a corruption network that had been poisoning his community for years. Today, taxi drivers and rideshare operators across the country are trained to recognize signs of criminal activity and report suspicious behavior to authorities. Tyler's legacy lives on in these safety protocols, protecting both drivers and passengers from the kind of conspiracy that cost him his life. But Tyler's story also raises troubling questions that remain unanswered even today. How many other corruption networks are operating in cities across America, silencing whistleblowers and eliminating witnesses? How many missing persons cases are actually carefully orchestrated murders designed to protect criminal conspiracies? The FBI estimates that there are over 87,000 active missing person cases in the United States at any given time. While most involve voluntary disappearances or tragic accidents, a significant number remain completely unexplained. Cases where ordinary people vanish without a trace, leaving behind families desperate for answers and investigators with no leads to follow. If Tyler West's sealed envelope hadn't been discovered by chance 15 years later, his case would still be unsolved today. His murder would have been the perfect crime, and the corruption network would still be stealing millions of dollars from taxpayers while putting citizens' lives at risk with substandard public safety equipment. This makes you wonder, how many other Tyler Wests are out there? How many other sealed envelopes are sitting in storage facilities, safety deposit boxes, or hidden in walls waiting to be discovered? How many families are still searching for answer that might be found in a piece of evidence that hasn't been uncovered yet? The next time you see a missing person poster or hear about someone who vanished without explanation, remember Tyler West's story. Remember that sometimes the truth is hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right person to ask the right questions at the right time. And remember that in a world where powerful people will do anything to protect their secrets, the courage of ordinary citizens like Tyler West is the only thing standing between justice and corruption. If this incredible story of corruption, murder, and ultimate justice has left you questioning how many other conspiracies might be hiding in plain sight, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. We dive deep into cold cases that prove truth really can be stranger than fiction, and justice, no matter how long delayed, is always worth pursuing. Let me know in the comments. Do you think there are other missing persons cases that might actually be murders designed to cover up corruption? Have you ever encountered suspicious activity that made you question what was really going on behind the scenes? Your observations and theories could help shed light on cases that investigators might have missed. And here's a question that will keep you awake tonight. If you discovered evidence of a major conspiracy like Tyler West did, would you have the courage to document it, knowing it might cost you your life? Or would you choose to stay silent to protect yourself and your family? The choice between safety and justice is never easy, but Tyler West's story proves that sometimes doing the right thing is the only way to ensure that the truth eventually comes to light. Thank you for joining me on this incredible journey into one of the most disturbing corruption cases I've ever covered. Until next time, stay safe out there, keep asking questions, and never stop searching for the truth.